Welcome to my tutorial on how I styled the bangs for my Daisy wig. Today we are starting out with this base Doki Doki wig, and with a little bit of luck and a lot of work, turning it into this. So I hope you find this video helpful. Let's get into the tutorial. So for our very first step, what I did is I sectioned the bangs layer by layer, and I went through and I crimped and I crimped and I crimped. And what you're going to want to do is keep out your top layers here. I also pulled out what I thought the beginnings of the side spike would be, just so I can start sectioning things. And I made sure also to keep the very top layers out. This middle of the bang puff goes a little higher though, so I'm going to crimp a tad higher, and then boom, boom, and now we can lay our smooth hair over top of it to kind of minimize that crimped looking texture. I will also say the further we progress into this tutorial, I did work on this wig in tandem with Glitchy Rogue, who has far more wig experience than me. So here what I'm doing is looking at the pre-cut layers and separating them out from the back of the wig so that way I can start crimping our big side spikes. Now some of this was cut kind of unevenly. I ended up trimming it a bit and separating out those pieces. And keep in mind that underneath of this spike she also does have a sideburn piece, so start earmarking what section you also want to keep as her little spiky sideburns. And guess what? We are back to crimping. Now the best advice I got to get this high volume is to move the crimper quite quickly. Don't worry so much about texture because a lot of this wig is going to be just about building volume, and we'll worry about texture later. If you are concerned about texture on a wig though, crimping at opposing 45-degree angles and spending a little more time will get you a smoother texture and help you from detangling, but what we're looking for is high volume. So what I'm doing now is I've sectioned off what I want to be the sideburn, and now I'm looking at this swoopy piece and sectioning it off. And guess what? More crimping. Crimp, crimp, crimp. You're gonna crimp so very much on this wig. So all you're seeing me run into here is some of the pre-cut layers were a little inconsistent. This was the length of the long part of the wig, but I think I do want it to lay into our side spike. So I'm gonna let it down, I'm going to chop it, and then I'm going to crimp it in with the rest of this hair in the section. And just like that, ta-da, we've got a crimped side piece. And just like the other sections, I am laying down that smooth top piece to disguise some of our texture before moving on to the next section. And then everything we just did, do it again on the other side. Perfect. Now you've completed crimping your bang section. Woohoo! Now it's time to start teasing the hair because you guessed it, this isn't enough volume yet. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to start teasing layer by layer. And much like we did with crimping, I like to leave that top layer pinned back so that way we can smooth it over our messy tease. And here's me teasing one of the side puffs. For this first round of teasing, I did do it quite tightly, but it kind of gave this hollow shell look to the bangs that I ended up not being super big on. But regardless, here is the first round of teasing on the full bang section. But no, I wanted even more. So Glitchy recommended that instead of tightly teasing it, to do what these really puffy cloud-like teases and to just kind of make a cobweb base to lay the hair over. And what that would do is make it seem a lot less hollow, because my bangs before kind of looked like Aerith bangs underneath where you could see through to my forehead, but by doing it this method you can already see how it's closer to my forehead and more of a superstructure for us to lay the hair over, and it really gives more of that cartoony volume effect. This was completely game-changing and allowed me to get much more of an extreme puffy looking volume that was going to be easier to sculpt down the road than the more hollow kind of U-shaped underbang. So now at this point I was happy with the volume. I had everything kind of lightly mapped into the shapes I wanted it to be, and it was time to try it on because I hadn't actually cut the bangs yet. I wanted to focus on volume to see what the shrinkage would be before cutting length. So now I'm holding it to my face and seeing how much needs trimmed back to really start framing it. Another thing we did before actually trimming it was to take these little pieces in the back, and to try and get more of that cartoony M shape, what we did was take a crimper and squeeze them together and let them cool while holding them vertically to make them more pronounced. Now after a slight trim, it was time to really get into shaping, and what we did was we had the blow dryer already on, and we would spray down a bunch of Got2b glue and then move over with the blow dryer and really cradle things, push up, and kind of try and get as much volume near the root as possible and really just sculpt it to my face. For a lot of it, Glitchy had me wear it and sculpted it around my face so it wasn't casting shadows and was up and away from my eyebrows. And then much like all the other steps, we had a very thin top layer where once we had the spike kind of shaped how we want, we'd lay it back down over it and really freeze it in with hairspray. At this point, we were done with our core 4 spikes and I was quite happy, so it was time to do some final trims on the spikes spikes themselves as well as the bangs, and now that the bangs were trimmed, it was time to turn them into her 2 baby spikes. I'm realizing I don't have any footage of the sideburns, but much like the middle spikes, we kind of trimmed them back, pushed them to the side of my head, and sprayed them. I think what I'll do when I actually wear her for cosplay is eyelash glue them to my temple to hold them to my face. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and best of luck on your very own wig. Till next time, bye!